It's only Tuesday. It's only Tuesday, but it is March the 22nd already. It feels like we just started March last week, and we're almost done with it. March is feeling like May right now. There's your Pear Deck link, right? I mean, we're almost out of March, guys. We start end of the year testing on Friday. Whew. Mac, my uncle used to say life is like a roll of toilet paper, and I guess we could say the school year is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. You guys, it's gonna go quick. Like we're gonna get through this testing, and then we're on spring break, and then we have about a month. Just about a month left, and then, the school year's over. And then you have to move on to another history or social studies class. And, our time together, it's growing short. Growing short. But that's okay. Such is life. Let's log into that Pear Deck. Let's get rolling. We're going to be talking about JFK and the Cold War. I know it says day 1. It should say day 2. But really, I just copy and pasted the cover because I like the little collage I made here. So it's JFK and the Cold War, day 2. Okay. Yesterday we talked about JFK getting elected and some of the issues, I guess, and the hurdles that went with that. And then we kind of just started looking at the Cuban Revolution and what went on there. Again, guys, I only got 15 of you logged into this. 15 out of 54 people in this big blue button. Let's go. Let's get logged in. Housekeeping, it's the same as yesterday, guys. Again, testing starts Friday, like we mentioned. Make sure you are attending homeroom every day. And contact your engagement coach if you don't know your testing logistics. If you don't know where you're testing, you're good, Ashley. If you don't know where you're testing, talk to your engagement coach in homeroom. They know. They'll tell you. Again, Thursday we're gonna shift gears. This is gonna be the last day of like new content for us. We're gonna hit pause, and we're gonna start reviewing for the air testing the rest of this week and next week. And I'll be and guys, if you're taking the test earlier than the week after next, like the week that I'm testing, I'm going to be building and posting a bunch of review stuff. Okay. That's okay, Manisha. I'm going to be posting a bunch of videos and resources and review modules and things like that. It's just going to be for the next week, like with me. That's what we'll be doing. Okay, but there'll be more stuff for you to help you get ready and prepare. Like I said, I'll be out testing on April 4th, 5th, and 8th. What's up, Larry? So those 3 days, there will not be live class. It will be a recorded session. Okay, you will be responsible for completing the assignments on those days. We'll have regular class April 6th and April 7th. I'll make sure I put out an announcement each of those days that we have the live class and that we don't. Okay, and so we mentioned testing ends April 14th, and then we're on spring break for a week. You guys get to just shut off unless you're super behind and you need to use that time to get caught up. Life's about choices. Stress check, guys. Where are you at today? Gina, it'll be like recorded stuff. Okay, I'm not gonna be like assigning a bunch of work. It might be like the workbooks and like you watch the recording, do the workbook type deal. Something that's not gonna take you longer than 10 or 15 minutes out of your day. You still have to go where? To testing or to class? If you're out testing, you don't need to go like log into class, but you will be responsible to watch the recordings later. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of what we'll probably do is like review stuff or like pet project stuff. Like we'll talk about stuff that like maybe I found interesting about something we've already talked about rather than learn new material. Does that make sense? Or maybe we'll, it'll be like Ed puzzles and things like that. Man, because we can't proctor you, that's why. I wish. I wish you could take the test at home, Antonio. It's not our rules. That's the state's rules. All right. Hey guys, if you're over here in this level, let me know what I can do to help you get down to here. I got one or two of you on that side. If you're over here, I'm not sharing my screen. I'm sorry. I'm off this week, guys. I'm off. Sorry. If you're over here, let me know what I can do to help you bring it down. Okay. Jerome, let's keep it appropriate. All right. Learning target today is the same. I analyze the rise of Fidel Castro threatening the United States by studying the cause and effects of the Cuban Missile Crisis. We're going to look at some other events that happened during this period, but that's the big one. Okay. We mentioned yesterday that President John F. Kennedy governed during perhaps the most tense moment of the Cold War in the U.S. People feared that the world was on the brink of all-out nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy's leadership helped to defuse this standoff, but he couldn't prevent the most iconic symbol of the Cold War from being constructed in Europe, the Berlin Wall. So we watched part of this yesterday before we left, but it was right at the end of class, and a bunch of you guys logged out, as you should have, to go to science class because, I couldn't manage the time. So we're going to watch this video real quick on the Bay of Pigs invasion. All right, again, that's just a recap of the Cuban Revolution and the Bay of Pigs invasion and what went wrong. It kind of failed from the get-go. So let's look at that a little bit more. All right. So prior to leaving office in 1961, President Dwight D. Eisenhower directed the CIA to create an operation to remove Castro from power. We mentioned yesterday, guys, Cuba is closer to Florida than Columbus is to Cleveland. Okay. And we, citing that Truman Doctrine, wherever communism pops up, the United States is going to be there to stop it. So our idea was to have the CIA train counter-revolutionaries from Cuba that were living in Florida and invade Cuba to overthrow the government. We were going to launch an invasion force from Guatemala and land at the Bay of Pigs, but it was a bad place to land, and they kind of knew it was going to happen. And it went wrong from the get-go. Nothing went as planned, as we mentioned, and it failed miserably. Especially trained groups sent to specifically act as a decoy to distract the Cuban forces never made it to the destination. When I was putting this together, this presentation, it kind of reminded me of that new Suicide Squad movie. If anybody see it, the first couple minutes when they're all like landing on the beach and like they're the one group never makes it, and a bunch of the guys that are getting killed, and they all know it's like what's going on because Pete Davidson ratted them out. Like it was kind of like that, right? But this turns into an absolute public relations disaster for Kennedy, right? On a world stage. Like the world knows the United States is trying to actively assassinate another world leader because A, they are a communist, and B, because they happen to live close to the United States. So they're going to try to kill him. For communists around the world, this was seen as a triumph, right? The United States is trying to kill us, and they're failing. Castro and the Soviet Union quickly demanded $52 million in food and medical supplies in exchange for any surviving soldiers that were captured. And this Bay of Pigs invasion really solidified Castro and Russia's relationship. Right? Russia was, now they have a friend in Cuba right next to the United States. Now they've got pretty much an in next to the United States. So from a espionage standpoint, this is good for Russia. This is not going to be the only clash between communists and the United States during the Cold War. All right, so after Cuban Revolution and the Bay of Pigs, how we feel? Does this stuff make sense? Good on this? A couple of us are lost. If we're over here, please let me know. What can I do to help you understand? Antonio, how you doing? Again, just to reiterate, this Bay of Pigs. The Cuba, which was really under the control of the United States since the Spanish-American War, had a lot of influence from the United States, a lot of money invested by not only American businesses, but the mafia. That government, run by a guy named Batista, who was a dictator, who was backed by the United States, gets overthrown by Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and other communists. So in retaliation to that, the United States launches this Bay of Pigs invasion to try to assassinate Fidel Castro, and it fails miserably. It blows up in their face. So let's shift back to Europe for a moment with what we call the Berlin crisis, because all of this is going on at the same time, right? We talked about how the Soviet Union and really the United States, but Great Britain, France, split Europe in half, right, between an east and west. And they split Germany in half between an east and west. And within Germany, they split Berlin, Germany's capital city, in half into an east and west. Right? And as we said here, after World War II, Germany's division between the Allied victors eventually led to the creation of two independent nations, a democratic West Germany, a communist East Germany. The city of Berlin itself was in East Germany, but it was also divided between a democratic West and a communist East Berlin. What's going to happen, though, is there's going to be a mass exodus of East Germans into West Berlin and West Germany. Right. So what we're going to see is a bunch of people living in East Germany don't want to live under communist dictatorship and communist rule. So they go to West Berlin. Remember that Berlin airlift's going on where we're landing planes and supplies and we're taking off. All of these refugees from East Germany go to West Berlin and escape to West Germany. Right. They get a ride with the United States and Great Britain and France on these planes and get out. Anytime there's a mass exiting of people, they call it an exodus, right? If you ever read, probably the most famous is the Bible, right? When the Jews leave Egypt, they call it, the book of that Bible is known as Exodus. It means exiting, right? They're leaving. And this is going to make the Soviet Union extremely unhappy because the loss of citizens in East Germany is going to negatively affect the nation and its economy. The Soviets are going to get even angrier over the fact that the United States is going to continue to station thousands of troops in West Berlin more than a decade after World War II had ended. So West Berlin is really just going to become a giant army base right in the middle of Soviet territory. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev insisted in 1958 that the United States pull out its troops from the city. President Eisenhower viewed this as a threatening ultimatum and said no. And this issue becomes known as the Berlin crisis. These two guys could not agree on anything. And in 1960, an American U-2 spy plane is going to get shot down over the Soviet Union, which we were spying on the Soviet Union from way up high in the sky. That plane's going to get shot down in 1960, and Russia is no longer willing to discuss Berlin with Eisenhower. And this is basically going to shut off all diplomatic contact between these two countries, except for there's going to be like a red phone where it's going to be a direct line to Moscow and the White House, and it's only going to be used in emergency situations. And that brings us to the Berlin Wall. Right? East Germans continued to flee into West Berlin over a relatively open border. So Khrushchev decided to act. In August of 1961, all rail stations and borders between West and East Berlin are shut down. Thousands of East German soldiers begin to build barbed wire fences along the border. Construction of a more permanent partition began in the middle of the night with the intent of surprising citizens in the morning. The whole purpose was to catch everybody by surprise. Those living in West Berlin awoke to the Berlin Wall completely surrounding the democratic portion of the city. Officially, the wall was meant to keep out Western infiltrators who threatened to upset the socialist state. Yet most people knew the truth that the Berlin Wall was a desperate solution to stop the flow of skilled workers and intellectuals who defected to the West. Okay. Walls, with the issues going on in the United States border right now, quote unquote issues, right? The previous president, President Trump, his solution was to build a wall, right? We're going to keep everybody out, but walls also keep people in. And that's what happened with the Berlin Wall. It kept people in. It literally, the only way out of West Berlin into Western Germany was you had to fly, which in the 1960s was very expensive. We're going to skip that question and go back to the Berlin Wall because the Berlin Wall is going to be known as become this iconic symbol of the Cold War. That remember, Winston Churchill described the Iron Curtain across Eastern Europe. The Berlin Wall is going to be the physical embodiment of that Iron Curtain, of that metaphor. President Kennedy gets invited to Germany to give a speech in front of that wall in West Berlin in 1963, shortly before he is assassinated. He proclaimed America's unwavering support for its democratic allies in Europe when he said in German, "Ich bin ein Berliner," which roughly what he was trying to say is, "I am a Berliner. Like I'm with you. I'm in solidarity. I'm a citizen of Berlin." But Kennedy had a very thick Massachusetts accent, and he mispronounced Berliner and said Berliner, which in German it roughly translates to jelly donut. So he got up in front of all of these Germans in this huge pomp and circumstance speech and proclaimed in German, "I am a donut." And then later on in 1987, U.S. President Ronald Reagan challenged the Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev when he said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall," and that wall wasn't going to be torn down until 1989 is when the Berlin Wall gets ripped down. My German teacher in high school had a piece of it. Okay. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, John F. Kennedy, and we're going to watch a video in the next episode or in the next slide, but Kennedy's going to get assassinated in Dallas, Texas in November of 1963. And Lyndon Baines Johnson is going to take over as president. Like I said, Kennedy's going to be that friend that comes into our life for a short time. They're here for a short, good time, not for a long time. But let's watch the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's going to be the last big thing to go down with the Cold War during Kennedy's presidency. All right, yeah. So, as we mentioned, Kennedy would get assassinated in 1963. As Mr. Betts mentioned, Khrushchev gets ousted the year after that, and Fidel Castro is going to live. Really, he just died a few years ago. All right. Your assignment today, workbook 3.5.2. Make sure you got yesterday's workbook 3.5.1 done, 3.5.2. All right. See y'all on Thursday, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Don't forget target sessions at 12:30 and 2:30 if you need help, if you have questions. Have an awesome day, guys.